This is the future of art.
The future of art.
Welcome. I'm your host, Justin Wadlington. On this first episode of the Future of Art podcast, we will unveil two of my latest paintings. These paintings in particular deal with the topic of visibility as well as the feeling of invisibility. And we'll have a discussion with my close friends Dejinay Reed and Jamal Huff in front of a live audience at the Town School Library in Manhattan, New York. Thank you all for coming out. I was exposed to books at a very young age. I used to look at certain things like, man, if I ever could paint or if I ever got back into drawing, because I stopped, I would love to incorporate these ideas and these books that I've read and things like that into my artwork. So this first painting I titled, I'm Invisible, I Am Visible. So I use familiar symbolism in my artwork to capture people that I feel like might need to hear a message. This guy is seeing himself and seeing like a higher version of himself. And this is like the master. He's obtained the book knowledge, he's obtained these things. And this is like his previous self. The rabbit hole opens, you start to seek more and more. I'm invisible, affirmation of sadness is like, I'm feeling invisible. I am visible. That's like an acclamation of, I am visible now. Like I no longer feel invisible. I am, and this is through self-awareness, self-actualization, self-knowledge. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. That's part of what inspired the title. This is the next painting, Know Thyself.
Oh, look at that.
These hands, you might have seen them in a lot of my recent artworks, some even from the past, inspired by the creation of Adam painting, Michelangelo. It's man's quest to find his higher self. And it's like almost touching, which means he's almost at that point where he's reached his higher self. I don't know if you guys have seen a movie like The Truman Show. It's a very deep movie, something that we might have felt at some point in our lives, like, you know, like maybe we're like trapped inside of some sort of weird reality, like what's going on here, trapped in a bubble and you know, seeking for, you feel something's off and you start to seek and you start to question. The message is really like to go within, go inside of yourself. That's where everything starts. You know, he climbs the ladder of books and then he reaches here. This is like heaven, but it's also like enlightenment. The books are open to represent the brightness, the enlightenment, but it all starts here. So, know thyself. This is a Latin phrase that I learned from the movie The Matrix, which is also a film that's deeper than kind of face value, that speaks on knowing more than believing. The second part to this, we will have a discussion about the artwork a little bit deeper, especially about the concept of feeling invisible versus visible. And the one who will help me facilitate these thoughts will be the lovely lady Dejinay Reed and my great brother over here, Jamal Huff.
I'm Dejinay Reed. I am a teacher by day, a creative by night, and I like to go by Miss Big Energy.
That's a good name for you.
All right, so listen up. We have a real powerhouse in the building today. He's straight out of Philadelphia. This man right here has spent over 2 decades in law enforcement. He's worked behind the scenes as a Secret Service agent for the Obama administration, protecting both the Obamas and Biden families. Please join me in welcoming Jamal Huff. Come on, guys. You guys can do better than that.
Wow.
All right, folks, you're in for another treat today. He's also straight from Philadelphia. This brother is making waves in the art world like nobody else. His work has been featured in major shows like the Flag Art Foundation and auction at the New York Academy of Art. He's known for putting on some of the most iconic and elaborate art shows you'll ever see. He's a self-taught artist who's blind in his left eye. He's forged his own path, navigating through group homes, emergency shelters, and adversities, and still rising to become one of the most respected names in the game. His pieces are owned by top art collectors like Glenn and Amanda Furman, as well as big name celebrities like Kevin Hart, Shaq, Brooke Shields, and others who wish to be unnamed. Beyond his art, he's a thinker, a teacher, and well, I'm lucky enough to say he's my partner. And if that wasn't enough, he's got a 5-star documentary out on Amazon and Tubi called Blind Eye Artist. This man's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Let's give a big round of applause for Justin Watson. Woo!
Thank you.
Library, it feels so nostalgic. You know, when I was a kid, we went to libraries all the time because my brother worked there. So it wasn't like something I wanted to do. It was something that we went, it was like take your sibling to work every Saturday. And that's what we did. So speaking of libraries, what's a favorite kid book?
First of all, speaking of nostalgia, yeah, I mean, even the smell of the books like reminds me of being a kid going to the library, which is also always a great experience because you got to get away from class. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, it's time to go to the library. Okay, cool, let's get out of this classroom. But I think one of my favorite books would be Curious George. I was always like a naturally curious kid. I'm still a curious adult as well. Always.
Curious George is a beloved.
Curious. Google has just entered the conversation. Welcome, Google.
Just listening. God.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah.
I've always been naturally curious, so just him always exploring and trying to experience new things and explore new possibilities, which is how I was as a kid, which I brought into my adulthood. So I think that's the reason why I always love Curious George.
It's actually an interesting book because they always had it was like Curious George flies a kite.
Yeah.
Curious George bakes a cake. I actually can vouch for that being a dope children's book. I remember I did have a Snoopy book. One in particular I can remember was called like Home is on Top of the Doghouse or something like that. And I feel like it was basically anywhere he went, he could go to these elaborate events or whatever, but once he got home on top of his doghouse, that's where he felt like safe and comfortable. And there's like something really deep in the whole concept of like feeling at home. And I say like people are home too, you know what I mean? Like you can feel at home being around certain people. I always say like the right partner, you want to feel like you're at home, like in a safe space. I used to sleep over Huff's house all the time when we went to high school together, and I like was always leaving my house for some reason. I just, you know, some of you might know the story of it just being crazy. But you know, when I think about the concept of like staying at somebody's house just whenever I want it, I never thought about like the parent thinking about like the food that they gotta make for one added person every day. So I would just be like, oh, I'm staying over.
And he ate a lot.
I should just go over there and not think, just oblivious. It just give me like this crazy flashback of like this, how I just used to just decide to stay at people's house. And yeah, so there was I remember me used to sleep a lot. And when I used to think about it, I'm like, man, maybe that was my version of feeling at home or feeling safe. And like me running this place and that place, I was always running. But then when I got around like friends and you see me knocked out, you see me snoring, that's a good thing for me because that was me like feeling at home.
What an elaborate answer. I would say mine was Where's Waldo? As you guys remember that book, Where's Waldo? I loved that book and I loved it because it made me concentrate. And I always found Waldo. It wasn't really hard. But I love this outfit. It just was like a common book. And I knew exactly where to find it in the library. It was always in the same spot.
Did you feel lost?
I might have felt lost. It might have connected to me feeling lost. But I connected well with that book. So since we're here talking about visibility, I think it would be great for us to define what does feeling invisible mean to you? Do you have any examples of feeling invisible?
I think for me, it would be like working really hard on something, putting your all into it, countless hours of hard work, dedication, commitment to something, and then going out to present that to not necessarily the world, but to whatever it is you're working toward, and not being recognized for it, right? Feeling like you did all that work, you put all that time in, and people aren't acknowledging it or noticing it or even giving you the respect for it. And I think that is why a lot of people feel invisible. I got a million concepts of why people can feel invisible. That's the first thing, but this is the first thing that came to my mind.
Do you have any examples from like being in the Secret Service? Can you give us some tea?
Making it to something like that, to that level, the belief that you have to have in yourself, coming from where we come from, is a feat in and of itself, right? To even think of the concept that you can do that, right? I'm a kid from Southwest Philly, and from the hood of Southwest Philly, and they gave me a gun and let me stand next to the president. You know what I mean? Like, it's the craziest concept when you think about it. But I think the issue is like, if I would always say that a lot of people that I work with, if they knew what I had to do to get there, they would be amazed, and a lot of them wouldn't be there that they had to go through what I went through. So I feel like if they could see that, right, there's certain things that would happen within the job that they wouldn't understand where I was coming from or why I did things a certain way, and if they knew what I had to do to get there, it would understand better. So I guess there's a little bit of invisibility there because they can't see me and what I had to go through, to get to that level.
The book, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, it was a story of like a no-name character who was very intellectual. He was smart. He was like very prideful in his storytelling ability, and all he wanted was like a shot to like speak and show people what he could do. And he wanted to attend like this prestigious college and all these things. And he ended up connecting with these guys that were like, okay, meet us here, we'll let you speak in front of like our club. So now this book came out in like the 50s. So this was around the time when there was like a lot of like heavy on the racism and segregation and things like that. So when he went to perform, he wasn't allowed to go straight to his speech. They told him to like put Vaseline on and like wrestle and fight these other like black guys or whatever for like their entertainment. So he's like, what's going on here, blah, blah, blah. And bloody mouth, he's like trying to jockey for his life, trying to fight these guys. And then after it's all over, he's like, man, I did all of this and I don't even get to, say my speech. But then one of the guys calls him over, like, oh, you come over, you get to talk now. And like, he's like, okay, really? And he's like speaking with blood in his mouth. He's trying to be an orator and all these good things. And he ends up using like the word like equality or something like that. And then one of the guys like stops him and says like, did you really just say equality? And he's like, no, sir, sorry, blah, blah, blah. And he almost like had to conform to that environment. And then he ended up trying to get into the college, and then nobody kind of would hear him. He ended up stumbling upon this group of guys who heard him speak and welcomed him in. But the thing was, like, the group of guys that welcomed him in had ulterior motives. That could be the word, the phrase, the term. And so he was speaking, but he was speaking for a bad cause. But he was speaking so well that he just felt at home that he finally got a shot to speak. And, deep down, over time in the book, he ended up like going through all these like things that he really didn't want to go through. He ended up falling in this hole. People were like trying to kill him. And instead of like trying to climb out or whatever, he just kind of stayed there. And I'm believing this is like very metaphorical and symbolic and not just literal. He stayed in his hole and he was contemplating like, what am I doing here? Like, what has my life become? I'm like trying to impress everybody. I'm trying to appease these people just so I could be seen. And even if it requires me to do something that's not really against my morals, I'm doing it because I just want to be seen. And now I'm in this hole, you know what I mean? And now he's like, what's next? So he stays in this hole by his own choice. And then finally, starts to look within, sees itself, and says, you know what, I'm going to climb out of this hole this time. I'm not going to let society tell me who I am. I don't need society to see me. I'm going to see myself. And then I'm going to climb out of this hole and be a different person. So that's, I know that I wanted to, you probably asked me a personal thing, but to kind of connect it to that book. And I'm pretty sure we all feel like that sometimes, especially in this era of social media. We feel like being seen is the only way we'll be heard. And what we see now is just nothing but negativity everywhere. It's like you spend all your life doing these positive deeds and doing this. And even if you do a positive deed in person, in public, they shun you for it. But you do a negative deed, they promote you. You ask somebody to promote you, how much? Here, charge 10,000, whatever. But if you do something dumb, you don't gotta ask nobody sharing you. Everybody's sharing you, and it's so crazy. So that's the downfall of trying to do stuff to be seen, because you feel invisible through the eyes of everybody else. So the goal is to feel visible to yourself. Yeah.
I love that answer, and I think it's a good segue into like going into you as an artist and your artistry. When did you start feeling visible? When did you start feeling visible as an artist?
I do feel like I felt invisible though for a while. Invisible, my eye. I always used to say when I was younger, when I was very young and I thought art was going to be my career path, I was really excited. But then, once I kind of gave up on that dream a little bit later, I was like, man, I probably won't ever be able to be something great because of my eye. And, like people will judge me off of that or think I'm inferior or I'm a defect or whatever. And I kind of lost the motivation and encouragement. And I guess I started feeling visible. I guess I could, basically the moment I decided to get back into art is because I was drawing, I believe, at the American Airlines break room. And I might have been sketching something and somebody was like, man, I didn't even know you know how to draw. Like, that's like real talent right there or something like that. And it made me like really like, for some reason that time they said it. I've heard people ask me over the years, like, like, why are you not pursuing your talent with art? And you could draw, what are you doing? But for some reason, like me sitting in that break room and I heard that and, somebody stopping to look at and then once I used that and kept continuing that, like, oh, look what I did. And more people was kind of encouraging. I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit like people appreciate me and I have something beyond, just being here. So yeah, once I got back into art and people started to like acknowledge that.
So funny because I thought you would say something like when Kevin Hart like shared my work on Instagram, but I really love how that was like a really personal moment. People see your Instagram, they see your following, they see you, in different places with different people, and they think that, you have it all. But what are the challenges that you face of being visible and being in the public eye, I would say, with your artwork?
I feel like one of the challenges in life, just for me, and I'm pretty sure it's for anybody, is like the world never stops, pretty much. So you could choose to not do nothing with yourself and struggle and be upset. So you can choose that way. It's going to be hard. And that it's the certain, like, choose your heart. It's going to be hard either way. And sometimes, like, I feel like maybe because I want to, in my mind, consider myself like a perfectionist with art. Like the one thing I'm like, man, if I have control over like one thing in my life where I didn't mess up, like let it be art. Like let me just do that the best I can, you know what I mean? And sometimes, once you deliver that to the world, you open yourself up to criticism, people kind of micro-analyzing what you do and have an opinion on it. And to constantly hear that, not constantly, it's not a constant thing, maybe it's here and there, but like to hear that and still work hard. And in my case, I always say like, I don't get paid for painting these things. Like I hope that maybe somebody want to acquire it, put it in their house and tell a story about it. But it's not like somebody's like, oh, Sometimes it's like that. I might get paid for it, but normally it's like I have an idea and I want to just see it come to life. And I'll invest all of my, income into seeing that vision come to life. And that's like, obviously this year I probably did like 8 big paintings. And that pressure is kind of pretty crazy to like constantly do that over and over again with no whatever, you know what I mean? Just investing in and hoping something comes out.
I want to say something about something you said previously that I think is important. You said that one of the things that made your confidence low was your eye, right? You thought that people would judge you based on that. And that made me think about, when we're talking about visibility, how the way we perceive ourselves is how we think people see us, right? So if I have a complex about myself, something that I don't like, and somebody's staring at me, I'm gonna think they're staring at me because they see that, right? So it could be my lack of confidence or something on my face, a pimple, whatever it is. But if I'm a really confident person and I think I'm handsome and I think that I'm just the best, and somebody's staring at me, I would say, oh, he's looking at me because I'm handsome. You know what I mean? Or if I'm not confident, oh, he's looking at me because something's wrong with my eye. So it's all about self-perception and how you feel about yourself, and talking about being visible. When you feel like you earned the right to be seen and you carry yourself that way, then you'll notice that people are seeing you. And then they're seeing you for the reasons that you believe that you're great. So that's just what I think happened to you.
So tell us, what is next for you? You have a little secret you want to share with us?
The next thing is Gracie Mansion, and the mayor's home, Gracie Mansion. I'm actually gonna have an exhibition throughout the summer, starting in July through about October. I have like about 12 pieces hanging up in Gracie Mansion. So that's gonna be fire. Thank you guys. That's gonna be fire. And I would like my artwork to kind of live on, because there's messages in there that I think are like everlasting messages that if you find it, it could help you evolve. So that's why I want the art to kind of, somebody to dissect it eventually. Not dissect, dissect the concept and the idea, because that's the main part.
What messages or advice do you have to upcoming artists or artists who look up to you? What would you say, or who want to give up too? What would you say to them?
I would say, anything I say now is what I would say to myself too, like my younger self, any kind of self that feels down or needs like motivation. And really, like I said, like everything's hard, but you get stronger, and that's the goal. Fitness, whatever, it's just get stronger, because the weight doesn't change. It's your strength that changes. You know what I mean? So get stronger with whatever you do. Don't look too much at what everybody else is doing, because that's going to make you.
Yes.
If you already wavering, looking at what everybody else is doing is just going to make you not even want to start. And then 10 years from now, you're gonna be like, damn, I wish I would have started, but I was too afraid to start. And then now you're like, oh, it's too late to start. And then you're just gonna forever be in this like cycle of like not wanting to start because you're like discouraged. So the goal is to like always keep going no matter what. I once heard, I can't remember where I heard it from, but it was something like there's always gonna be a new car, or there's always gonna be a party, whatever year. So even if you decide to stop for 5 years, you're not gonna miss nothing, because once you come back out with your newfound strength, all of that's still gonna be here. So the party, you see people partying online, you see them having fun. Half of those people that's having fun and partying, what are they partying for? You know what I mean? Like I feel like you should party after you do something, really, and not. I mean, it's subjective, but like doing too much of anything is bad. So even working. But anyway, so yeah, the goal is to just kind of stay focused, be disciplined, be consistent. You know what it's like already. Back there, it's like a quote from the Matrix. It's like, you've been there before, you've been down that road, you know exactly where it's going to lead. So why are you choosing to stay there or keep going back to it? Keep going forward for your future, keep going, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If people ignore you, ask somebody else. Never, it's your time. Just go for it, and then just never give up, and work, really focus on building your skills and your discipline and your endurance, because that's another thing, is like endurance will make you stronger to survive these yeses and these nos, because the yeses sometimes are detrimental too early. You know what I mean? If you're not ready for a certain yes, you might get into a situation where you can't handle it, you might blow it, and vice versa. So yeah, stay strong, keep going.
All right, I want you to finish these. Thank you for that. I want you to finish these statements that I have. Step into your power because.
Step into your power because you are powerful, and if you know it will happen, it will happen. And it will only happen if you know it will happen, if you use your power and your belief. But like I said, it's beyond belief. So just know it, step into your power, be great, be powerful. Say that to yourself, like, I am great, I am powerful. And you don't have to say it in like an arrogant way, but just like an affirmation, because we're all human. You hear that all the time. But it's true, we're all human. Some of these people, you think because they got $1 million, whatever, they're better or whatever. It's like, nah, like they might be lacking something else, that, you know, that they might need something. So it's like we should all kind of just believe that we're powerful and encourage each other and build each other up. And that only happens when we step into that power and we can give back.
When people look at my art years from now, I hope they see.
I might have answered this, but I hope they see, you know, this kid that you know, has this wild story. We all have wild stories, but somebody that kind of chose to step out into some kind of a light for people to just look at, you know, and be criticized and things like that, and that they kept going and they kept trying to evolve. They kept pushing themselves. And regardless of like whatever things were thrown in their way, they kept going. And you know, you could see it through the dedication. And hopefully, you can see it through the detail and the concepts and things like that. That I actually, you know, take my time and care about all the brushstrokes and things like that. And these things, the brushstrokes and the taking time, could be compared to so many things in life. You know what I mean? You look at a painting, I always say like a painting is like time standing still. Like you see 100 hours or 5 months in front of you. Like this is what it looks like. You know what I mean? And that's the goal, is like, yo, something might take 5 months and it might take every day working at it. But set out for that goal, set out for a date that you wanted to be completed, see it come to fruition, and then rinse and repeat. And yeah, so I want people to see that it's dedication in this. Yeah.
Well, when I view art, I noticed that the culture of art, it hasn't been really profitable for painters and such like that, because people are usually honored in their passing. And I was wondering if you ever thought of like innovative ways to bring more money to the artist, as far as like how people will pay now $1 million for a Basquiat painting now that he's deceased. But what about the living artist?
Got you. I've been pondering the same thing, because it's such a small percentage that really kind of makes a real killing with selling their paintings. But when you really think about it, that's like that with almost every profession. It's like a small percentage. Like we can't all, I don't want to say we can't all, but you know, everybody's not making NBA contracts that play basketball, and there's a lot of dope ball players. So really the goal, which I really find strange, is like artists should collaborate more, or just like support each other more, and not be against each other on how they do what they do. It's kind of like, that's the biggest thing. It's just like everybody's an island, and you hit up artists and you want them to support, and it's like, it's always like a lot of pushback. But if you look at any great community, any great nation, it's built on like everybody like sticking together like a links in a chain. And we're like a lot of broken links that are like talented individually, and we want to show this person what we did. But I think like the main goal is like to to join somehow. One of the big things in this era is like exposure and marketing. And honestly, those kind of questions are like what each individual has to kind of like really research and figure out how to go about that, because there is a way. So like me, I do prints. I'm not really worried about I would love for somebody to acquire the original, but it's kind of also cool because I found a location that I've been with for 7-8 years, and they make high quality prints of my work. So I will get a photographer. I have a photographer who takes a high quality photo of my painting, and then I get the file. I send it to my print place. They print it out on canvas. And then now I have the original for I could put up for an art show, and I can also have prints in different sizes for people to want to acquire if they might not necessarily be able to get the main one. What's up, Josh? Yo, Josh, what's up, man?
As an artist, there's it seems to be an oversaturation online of just people trying to expose their craft or their art or people in entertainment. What are some specific tricks that you've used to gain an audience? Because you can be fantastic in your art. You can be exceptional in your art. And I see so many people who are exceptional artists of all types of art. You know what I do, and there's people, singers, actors, painters, artists, whatever. And they're having a hard time exposing their art to the world in order to get any traction. Then get to the point where they can take this quality, art and actually make a living off of it. If you're sitting there and only your community knows that you're dope and the world can't even see you because online is there an oversaturation of lower quality people who are just trying to find a way to get rich, as opposed to people like you and some of these other people here who would do it if nobody cared. They just love to do it. This is what they think about when they're trying to go to sleep at night. They can't stop from writing down their ideas and they gotta get to it. They'll stay up all night. How do you specifically find ways to grow in your audience to where it is, to where people know your art all over the world and all over the country? What are some steps that or some tricks, some tips to get through the clutter and actually find a way to expose your art? Because again, artists have to make a living, like my man said, but that's quality, but also the business of getting an audience to have created demand for your own work, or to create exposure, or just the knowledge that you're out here. So what are some things that you can suggest and that you use to get to the point that you're at where everybody knows you're the dopest?
Fellow Justin in the building. Yes. Straight from Philly too, man. Thank you for everybody for traveling, man, for here. But that's a great question, man. And I'm gonna get some possibly flack for this, maybe if this hits the airwaves, but it's quite true. People are afraid to like give. I don't know if it's like afraid to give or like it's taboo. It's like everybody wants this and that, but nobody ever is like, how can I give? How can I provide something that might not even lead to income in the beginning, but could provide an opportunity that could provide another opportunity later? Like nobody really forward thinks that far ahead. It's like, what I want it right now. So back when I used to, one of the things I used to do was like let's say, for instance, Kevin Hart. I knew, luckily, some of this stuff is luck, I guess, because like I worked with my homie Brian, and he was grew up with Kevin Hart. And I always was like, yo, if I do a painting for Kev, do you think that you could get it to him?
That's so helpful to know Kevin Hart.
Yeah, exactly. It's so helpful. But, you never know who knows who. And sometimes you never know, like the person that's sitting right next to you. Like I didn't know Brian knew Kevin Hart for the longest time until we was like somewhere and it was like, oh, that's dope. But even before, let's just rewind before Kevin Hart. I would, back before I was even painting, like I used to paint on clothes, but when I was like drawing real heavy and I wanted to like kind of show off my drawing, this was the time when I actually cared about showing off my drawing as opposed to just doing it, whatever. I would tag the drawing pages, and then they would like end up reposting me. These pages that have like 100,000 followers or something, and they would, every time they would post me, it would be dope because it would end up giving me 1,000 followers or something. Or I might do a Jay-Z and Nas. This was 2015, and World Star put it on their web. You know what I mean? And so it's like sometimes you gotta think of like what's the climate like, what would kind of be, that's this, you know, I can speak for art, I can't speak for all genres, but the goal sometimes is to put light on you. And sometimes, you know, I hear people say like you can't get paid off of exposure, but this whole world is based off of exposure. So like how you supposed to get people to see you if you're not exposing yourself? You know what I mean? So if somebody's like, okay, I'll trade you, it's like most people are not gonna really do nothing for you without something, unless they're, you know, it's very few. And you're lucky if you have people that will do something for you just because they love you. But most people are like trying to get something in return. So you can show off your skills all you want, but you know, if you want to show off your skills and ask them for money and you're trying to come up, sometimes I feel like maybe you should bargain a little bit more. So I think the goal is to try to find out how you can put yourself in a position to negotiate even. You know what I mean? I can't necessarily like say you should do stuff for free, because there are people who will use you and abuse you and take advantage of like what you do. So you gotta kind of use your discernment. But me, I was never afraid. Quick story, I remember this was when I was drawing, I remember Joe Budden was gonna be in Philly for a concert. And it was like 2 days before when I heard it. 2 days before he was gonna be there, I heard it. I ended up drawing a picture of Joe Budden. He had just recently dropped the album. This was like probably 2015. He recently dropped the album, so I end up drawing Joe Budden real quick, putting like the image of his album cover on his shoulder. Didn't know anybody, didn't know Brian. I didn't know Brian, but I didn't ask Brian anything. Went down to where he was going to be at, went inside, I asked the manager, I was like, yo, I drew this picture of Joe Budden. You think I could get it to him? I think I even bought a ticket, so I wouldn't look like I'm just, just whatever. Bought a ticket to the thing, and he was like, hold on, let me go see. He took the drawing, went back there, showed them, came back. I was like, he liked that John, like come upstairs or whatever. And then I watched the show, went backstage with them, took pictures, everything. And then he ended up posting me too, and I got a lot of followers off of that. The Kevin Hart post, I got 10,000, 20,000 followers in like 3 days. And then that's when Shaq hit me up. And then I met my man Glenn from Shaq, and it was just crazy. This is a crazy chain of events all off of a gift.
I think that you need to talk more about those things that you did. Can y'all hear me? You did a lot of things like that, right? That you should talk more about. Standing in line for hours, drawing a painting, not knowing if anybody was ever going to see it, but believing in yourself enough to say, if I do this and I can get this to this person, I'm gonna go stand in line for, like when you stood in line to meet 50, right? Yeah. And you stood there and he signed in, you got the picture with him and all that. Yeah. That kind of stuff I think is what people need to know when he asks like how to get exposure. Tagging these things all the time, like being like so focused and like having a sick work ethic to just sit there and take the temperature of the culture, knowing who to tag, knowing who to draw, paying attention to all these concepts, and dedicating yourself to that.
But the crazy part with that is people call me crazy for doing it that way.
Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you.
I was raised in Southwest, home of the failures. Do a crime, call mom, hope she could bail us. Only heroes where I'm from is drug dealers. Never hold myself accountable, but love mirrors. Looking at myself like it ain't your fault. My kind was set up to fail. What else you thought? You thought you could pick up a brush and make classics? Thought you could pick up a mic and spit acid? No, you all on your own, there's no one else here. Gotta still go to Commonwealth and get welfare. The next day I woke up, no money in my pocket. Next old person that I see, I'ma rob him. Saw one on Woodland Ave, didn't take a second look. Put my gun up, no money, he only had books. I still took them, then I was gone. I got out clean, title would remind me of me, cause I was never seen. It remind me of my past, my life was hard, it remind me of a cast. My uncle Nard told me a couple years ago that I can't leave, and most people struggle at life cause they can't read. I know how, but I don't, that's why I'm miserable. Read 2 books and then accepted I'm invisible. Got 2 more books, Robert Greene author. Mastery in the 48 laws of power. My life changed fast, did a full flip. So all this year, I'ma think and grow rich.